Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will strip away every comfortable illusion you've built about human nature, about respect, about power, and about your place in this world. Thomas Hobbes understood something that most people spend their entire lives refusing to acknowledge, that in the natural state of humanity, life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. But more than that, he understood that respect is not earned through kindness, through accommodation, through endless giving of yourself to others who would drain you dry without a second thought. Respect is earned through the demonstration of power, through the willingness to withdraw that power, and through the courage to walk away when your value is not recognized. You have been conditioned from birth to believe that being agreeable, being accommodating, being the person who always says yes, always helps, always sacrifices their own needs for others, will earn you respect and love. This is perhaps the most destructive lie ever told to the human spirit. What it actually earns you is contempt disguised as appreciation, exploitation disguised as friendship, and a life of quiet desperation where you become invisible in plain sight. The moment you become predictable in your availability, the moment you become reliable in your willingness to sacrifice yourself, you cease to be valued. You become a resource to be exploited, not a person to be respected. Human beings are fundamentally selfish creatures, and this is not a moral failing, it is biological reality. We are wired for survival, for the preservation of self, for the accumulation of resources and advantages. When Hobbes described the state of nature as a war of all against all, he wasn't being pessimistic. He was being honest about the underlying motivations that drive human behavior, even in our supposedly civilized society. People will take from you exactly what you allow them to take, and they will respect you only to the degree that you demonstrate your willingness to protect your own interests with the same ferocity that they protect theirs. Think about every relationship in your life where you feel undervalued, taken for granted, or disrespected. I guarantee you that in every single one of those relationships, you have trained the other person to treat you poorly by accepting their poor treatment without consequence. You have taught them that your time has no value by always being available when they need you, regardless of your own needs. You have taught them that your energy is unlimited by constantly giving of yourself without requiring reciprocation. You have taught them that your boundaries are meaningless by allowing them to be crossed repeatedly without walking away. The harsh truth is that people do not respect what they can have for free. This is not because they are inherently evil, but because scarcity creates value and abundance destroys it. When you make yourself abundantly available to someone, when you consistently prioritize their needs over your own, when you accept whatever scraps of attention or affection they choose to throw your way, you are communicating to them at the deepest psychological level that you have little value, and they will treat you accordingly, not out of malice, but out of the natural human tendency to allocate resources based on perceived value. But here's where it gets interesting, where the real power lies hidden in plain sight. The moment you withdraw your availability, the moment you stop being predictable in your willingness to accommodate, the moment you demonstrate that you are willing to walk away from anyone who does not recognize your worth, something fascinating happens. Suddenly, you become scarce. Suddenly, your time becomes valuable because it is no longer guaranteed. Suddenly, your attention becomes precious because it must be earned rather than taken for granted. This is not manipulation. This is the natural law of human psychology working in your favor instead of against you. When you walk away from someone who has been taking you for granted, you are not playing games or being petty. You are demonstrating the most fundamental principle of self-respect, that you understand your own value and you refuse to participate in relationships where that value is not recognized and reciprocated. The people who truly belong in your life will recognize this demonstration of self-worth and will step up to meet you at your level. They will suddenly remember why they valued you in the first place, and they will make the effort to show you that value in concrete ways. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. Some people will not step up. Some people will let you walk away without a fight, and this tells you everything you need to know about their true feelings toward you. This is not a failure of the strategy. This is the strategy working perfectly, separating those who genuinely value you from those who were simply using you. The fear of walking away, the fear of being alone, the fear of losing relationships even when those relationships are one-sided and draining, is what keeps most people trapped in lives of quiet desperation. But what they fail to understand is that being alone is infinitely preferable to being with people who make you feel alone. Solitude chosen from a position of strength is freedom. Solitude endured from a position of weakness is prison. When you walk away from people who do not respect you, you are not choosing loneliness. You are choosing dignity. Machiavelli understood that it is better to be feared than loved, but what he really meant was that it is better to be respected than taken for granted. Fear, in this context, is not about causing harm to others, but about the healthy fear that comes from knowing that your patience, your kindness, your availability are not infinite resources that can be exploited without consequence. When people know that you are willing to remove yourself from their lives, if they do not treat you with respect, they will treat you with respect. When they know that your presence in their life is a privilege that can be revoked, they will treat it as a privilege. This principle applies to every area of your life: your romantic relationships, your friendships, your family dynamics, your professional interactions. In every context, the person who is willing to walk away holds the power. The person who is desperate to maintain the relationship at any cost becomes the victim of that desperation. Your willingness to end a relationship that does not serve you is your greatest source of power in that relationship, because it demonstrates that you have options, that you have standards, and that you will not compromise your self-respect for the comfort of familiarity. But understand this clearly: walking away is not a threat to be used lightly or frequently. It is not a manipulation tactic to get people to behave the way you want them to behave. It is a genuine demonstration of your boundaries and your self-worth. When you walk away, you must be prepared for the possibility that the other person will not follow. You must be walking away because you genuinely believe that your life will be better without this person in it, if they cannot treat you with the respect you deserve. If you are walking away as a bluff, hoping they will chase you, you are still operating from a position of weakness and desperation. The strength to walk away comes from the deep knowledge of your own worth, from the unshakable belief that you deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and from the courage to be alone rather than to accept less than you deserve. This is not arrogance. This is healthy self-regard. This is the recognition that your time on this earth is limited, your energy is finite, and your emotional resources are precious. You have the right, indeed the obligation, to protect these resources from those who would squander them. Nietzsche spoke of the will to power, but what he really meant was the will to self-determination, the refusal to allow others to define your value or dictate your worth. When you walk away from someone who does not respect you, you are exercising your will to power. You are declaring that you will not be defined by their treatment of you, that you will not allow their inability to see your worth to diminish your own understanding of that worth. The world is full of people who will drain your energy, waste your time, and take your kindness for granted if you allow them to do so. They are not necessarily bad people, but they are operating according to their own self-interest, just as you should be operating according to yours. The difference is that they have learned to take what they can get without giving back, while you have been taught to give what you can without asking for reciprocation. This imbalance is what creates the dynamic where you feel used and undervalued, but you have more power than you realize. Every relationship is a negotiation, whether conscious or unconscious, about the terms of engagement. What will you give? What will you receive? What behavior will you accept? What behavior will you not tolerate? Most people enter these negotiations from a position of desperation, so grateful to be included that they accept whatever terms are offered. But you can choose to negotiate from a position of strength, setting clear expectations about how you will be treated, and being willing to walk away if those expectations are not met. This is not about being difficult or demanding or unreasonable. This is about having basic standards for how you allow yourself to be treated. It is about recognizing that respect is not something that is given freely. It is something that is earned and maintained through consistent behavior. And the most powerful way to earn and maintain respect is to demonstrate that you will not accept disrespect. When you master the art of walking away, you will find that most of your relationships improve dramatically. People will begin to treat you differently, not because you have changed who you are, but because you have changed what you will accept. You will attract people who are capable of reciprocal relationships, people who understand that respect and consideration must flow both ways. You will repel people who are looking for someone to use and exploit, because you will no longer be available for that role. But the most important change will be in how you see yourself. When you stop accepting poor treatment from others, you stop believing that poor treatment is what you deserve. When you demonstrate through your actions that you value yourself enough to walk away from situations that diminish you, You begin to internalize that value at the deepest level. You begin to carry yourself differently, to speak with more authority, to make decisions from a place of strength rather than fear. The person who cannot walk away is trapped, not by external circumstances, but by their own inability to value themselves enough to demand better treatment. They become prisoners of their own desperation, accepting whatever is offered because they believe it is better than nothing. But nothing is often better than something that slowly destroys your sense of self-worth. The absence of disrespect is better than the presence of disrespect disguised as affection. This is particularly true in romantic relationships, where the fear of being alone often drives people to stay in situations where they are undervalued, taken for granted, or treated poorly. But a relationship that requires you to diminish yourself is not a relationship worth having. Love that does not include respect is not love at all. It is need, dependency, or habit masquerading as love. Real love includes admiration, appreciation, and consideration. Real love makes you feel more like yourself, not less. The same principle applies to friendships. A friend who only contacts you when they need something, who is never available when you need support, who takes your kindness for granted and never reciprocates, is not really a friend. They are someone who has learned that you are a reliable source of whatever they need, and they will continue to treat you as a resource rather than a person until you demonstrate that your friendship must be earned and maintained, not simply taken. In professional settings, the employee who never says no, who always stays late, who accepts additional responsibilities without additional compensation, who allows their boundaries to be crossed repeatedly, will not be rewarded for their dedication. They will be exploited for it. The employer will come to see this behavior as the baseline, not as exceptional service worthy of recognition. But the employee who sets clear boundaries, who demands fair compensation for their work, who is willing to look for other opportunities if their current situation does not meet their standards, will be treated with much more respect and consideration. The pattern is always the same. People treat you the way you teach them to treat you, and you teach them through what you accept, not through what you say. You can talk all you want about deserving respect, but if you continue to accept disrespectful treatment, your actions are teaching them that your words are meaningless. The only way to teach people that you deserve respect is to stop accepting disrespect, even when that means walking away from relationships that are familiar and comfortable. Walking away is difficult because it requires you to face the possibility of being alone, and most people have been conditioned to fear solitude more than they fear being mistreated. But solitude is not the enemy. It is the space where you remember who you are when you are not busy trying to please others. It is where you reconnect with your own needs, your own desires, your own sense of what you will and will not accept. It is where you develop the strength to demand better treatment because you remember what it feels like to treat yourself well. The irony is that the people who are most comfortable being alone are the ones who tend to have the healthiest relationships because they are not operating from desperation. They are not willing to accept poor treatment because they are terrified of being abandoned. They choose their relationships consciously from a position of strength, and they maintain their standards even when it means being alone for a while. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom to walk away from anything that does not serve your highest good. It is the freedom that comes from knowing that you are complete on your own, that you do not need others to validate your worth, that you can create a meaningful life whether you are surrounded by people or standing alone. When you have this freedom, when you truly understand that you can survive and thrive without any particular person in your life, then you can engage in relationships from a place of choice rather than need. And this is when people begin to respect you, not because you are useful to them, but because they recognize the strength it takes to maintain standards, to refuse to compromise your self-respect for the sake of keeping others comfortable. They recognize that your presence in their life is a choice you make every day, not a desperate need you are trying to fulfill. They understand that if they want to keep you in their life, they need to treat you in a way that makes you want to stay. The respect you gain from walking away is not really about the other person at all. It is about the respect you gain for yourself. It is about proving to yourself that you value your own well-being enough to protect it, even when protection means making difficult choices. It is about demonstrating to yourself that you are not at the mercy of other people's treatment of you, that you have agency and power and the courage to use both. When you truly understand that they only respect you when you walk away, you stop waiting for respect to be given to you and you start commanding it through your actions. You stop begging people to treat you well and you start expecting it as the basic requirement for access to your time and energy. You stop accepting crumbs and you start demanding the full meal, or you find somewhere else to eat. This is not about becoming cold or uncaring or isolated. This is about becoming selective, about understanding that your energy is finite and precious and should be invested in people and situations that appreciate and reciprocate that investment. This is about building a life filled with relationships that enhance your well-being rather than drain it, with people who see your value and reflect it back to you in their words and actions. The moment you master the courage to walk away from what does not serve you, you create space for what does. The moment you stop accepting poor treatment, you become available for good treatment. The moment you stop clinging to relationships that diminish you, you become free to attract relationships that elevate you. This is the law of nature that Hobbes understood, but that most people resist. That power flows to those who are willing to use it, and respect flows to those who are willing to demand it. So walk away. Walk away from the friend who only calls when they need something. Walk away from the romantic partner who takes your love for granted. Walk away from the job that exploits your dedication without recognition. Walk away from the family member who treats you poorly because they know you will always be there. Walk away from anyone who mistakes your kindness for weakness, your availability for desperation, your love for dependency. Walk away not in anger, but in strength. Walk away not to punish them, but to honor yourself. Walk away not because you hate them, but because you love yourself enough to demand better. And watch how quickly they remember your value when your absence makes them realize what they have lost. Watch how they suddenly find the time, energy, and consideration that they claimed they did not have when you were always available. Some will not follow, and that is the greatest gift they can give you. They will show you exactly who they are and what you meant to them, and you will be free to invest your precious life energy in people who recognize and reciprocate your worth. You will be free to build the life you deserve, surrounded by people who enhance rather than drain your spirit. This is the brutal truth that will set you free. They only respect you when you walk away, because walking away is the ultimate demonstration of self-respect. It shows that you understand your value, that you will not compromise your standards, and that you have the strength to be alone rather than accept less than you deserve. It shows that you are not desperate, not needy, not willing to sacrifice yourself for the comfort of others. It shows that you are a person of worth who expects to be treated accordingly. Master this truth, embody this strength, and watch your entire life transform. Watch as the people who matter step up to meet your standards, and watch as the people who don't matter reveal themselves for what they truly are. Watch as your self-respect grows, as your confidence increases, as your life becomes filled with relationships that serve your highest good, rather than drain your vital energy. This is your power. This is your freedom. This is your path to a life of genuine respect, authentic connection, and unshakable self-worth. The courage to walk away is the courage to live the life you truly deserve.